Do we have any announcements? We'll get started. Few announcements. We have the fall conference coming up. The State Association meets. There's going to be a French Lick. You go to the website. Jim, what's the website?
IndianaBeekeeper.com.
IndianaBeekeeper.com. And the fall conference is a French Lick. It's a Friday night and then really all day Saturday. Saturday's the presentation. Randy Oliver's going to be there. If you,
My hero.
yeah, he is worth the price of admission to see Randy Oliver. One of the premier bee researchers in the country or in the world will be down French Lick at our fall conference. So highly encourage you to do that. What's the date?
26th.
October the 26th.
It's Saturday.
Saturday. So if you I think on Friday night you have a business meeting, and then on Saturday is the conference.
There's a board meeting at lecture Friday night.
Is there a lecture Friday night? I usually don't go to Saturday, so I don't.
Yeah, Randy Oliver's going to give a talk on Friday night. And it's at the French Lick Hotel, but if you don't want to spring for that high price room, there are plenty of hotels in the area because the casino is there, so they can stay.
It's a good conference, and usually a lot of good talks, and Randy Oliver's really good.
It's usually a wonderful conference, and unfortunately, horribly unattended.
Yeah.
But I think Randy Oliver will be worth the night here.
Yeah, if you're really interested, the American Bee Federation is going to be in Schaumburg, Illinois, in January 8th to 11th. So if you're interested in going to the American Bee Federation, you know that.
Leaves and showers. Those are great.
That's it.
This.
What are we selling candy for? $8 for a candy bar. You can't hardly go for $8. I mean, you can go cheaper, but for time and everything, $8 is pretty cheap. So if you're interested, we got those for sale. We got raffle tickets tonight. If you want to get a raffle, we've got a few different things tonight that are.
We have some unique things tonight. We have some wax foundation for bees, some for shadows that's unwired so you can use it for your cut foundation, your cutting, a couple bottles of honey, a frame gripper, a hive tool, a queen grafting tool, a couple of small hive beetle traps, and your choice of Beekeeping First Year, a one-year subscription to Beekeeping First Year, American Bee Journal, or Bee Culture.
All right. We got just a couple quick talks. I was going to just lead a discussion on fall feeding. It's kind of our thing we're talking about doing right now. When to feed. This is kind of just my guidelines and my interpretation. Time to feed is when we've had a weak nectar flow. Depends on where you're at. I think in central Indiana we've had a very strong nectar flow in July and August, which lots of times is our girth. I think we've had an extremely good nectar flow for late summer, but lots of times during a weak nectar flow, the times for induced fall feeding. After honey harvest, a lot of us are notorious for taking too much honey and over harvesting, or even if you do harvest, that's a good time to do some fall feeding. Late splits and swarms. Sometimes we can't help. You pull your hive apart, you see queen cells. It's time to do a split. Even if you think it's late, good time to feed. Or if you catch a late swarm, sometimes they're hard to get through the year if you don't feed them. And the other issue, if you're taking the opportunity to treat for eczema, The antimicrobial is delivered through a sugar syrup, so if you're treating in the fall for nosema, that's a good time to add that to your feed. Times to feed, definitely sometime late August, mid-August, up through mid-October, usually before we get to the hard freeze. Daytime temperatures need to be in the 50s probably. It gets much lower than that. The bees aren't active, and then they won't take the feed, and it's just wasting time and money. During and after the dirt, like I said, mid-August and mid-October. Do you need to feed in the fall? I guess there's lots of ways to determine if you need to feed your hive. Is it light? You hear that term a lot. Is your hive light? And that is just physically, is it light? Can you tip your hive? And is it easy to tip? If you crack your hive apart and pick the upper super up, if it's not so heavy you can't hardly lift it, you're too light. So a full deep is probably 85 to 100 pounds. So I mean, if it's not a stroll to get that top deep off, you're probably too light. The total weight, top and bottom, you probably need to be somewhere around 165 to 185 pounds. You can get the fancy scales and actually weigh your hive, or you can just cut them. If you're not up that weight, particularly that top deep, you need to feed. Takes about 10 to 12 full frames of honey to get them through the winter. That's about 8 pounds of honey. I say, I would say carefully, don't tip your hive. If you're rocking it and you can feel the heft to it, then you're all right. If you tip it and it feels like an empty refrigerator, then not easy to feed. Syrup considerations. A medium to heavy syrup. I don't think it needs to be any secret formula. I'll keep saying it's parts of water or parts of sugar. So in the springtime, we try to do a 1-to-1, 1 part sugar, 1 part water. In the fall, closer to 2 part sugar to 1 part of water. I'm not that careful with it. I pour a bunch of sugar into a bucket, add a bunch of hot water, and in the fall I pour more sugar than I did in the spring. But I try to do 1.5 to 2 parts of sugar to 1 part of water. If you're well into the 2 parts per sugar, you're probably going to have to heat your water pretty hot. It doesn't want to go into solution. Less than that, you can probably choose your hot water out of the tap. Much more sugar than that, you're going to have to heat your water. If you want to, you can add honey, be healthy. Some people swear by it. I don't use it. I've used it, and I really didn't notice the difference. If they take one tank of syrup, they take it. Whether I put the essential oils in it or not. The consistency I like to see for fall feeding is like a runny honey, as opposed to a real light syrup. Just like if you heat your honey up, and it gets too hot, that's what you're looking at. That's the consistency you want. Fall feeding considerations. Might cause some robbing. You got to be careful on robbing. If that hive is light and the other hives in your apiary are light and your neighbor's hives are starving, you might set off some robbing. So I suggest if you're feeding is to add entrance reducers. So if you don't have entrance reducers, kind of tough right now because we're still having 90-degree days. It's tough if you don't have spring bottom boards and you put an entrance reducer on. They get pretty hot. But as it starts cooling down a little bit, you can use the entrance reducers. My favorite, yellow jackets. When you put sugar syrup out, you're gonna get some yellow jackets.
How do you know about this, Gary?
They kill a lot of my hives. I had a wonderful experience. They went from hive to hive to hive. Probably 10 or 12 of my hives yellow jackets in the fall. Another consideration is what we talked about is nosema. I don't see a lot of it, but sometimes in the fall, people will treat for the nosema with fumagillin bean. Is that right?
You
Don't need.
can't get it anymore.
You can't get it anymore? I think you can. I think it was just advertised. I think it came back out.
Oh, they came, who's that?
Seen it in the Beat magazines.
Really?
Yeah, I think they came back out with it. Because it was off the market for a while,
Yeah.
and I think they came back out with it. Types of feeders. Probably everybody's, if you bought a beef kit, everybody's had a Boardman feeder. So, if you're not familiar, we got some new beekeepers in here. It's a Boardman feeder, fits on the front of the hives. Nice things about it, really easy to use, really easy to fill. You can see if they're taking the syrup or not, but it will set off robbing. So, because your syrup's right at the entrance. So, little problems with it, but they're really easy to use. They're cheap. Other type, division board feeders. I like these. I use these a lot. They hold anywhere. This is the small one, holds about a gallon. The bigger one holds, I think, a gallon and a half. So I like these. You can put them in. You can put really a fair amount of syrup in. The bad part is you got to take 1 or 2 frames out. Usually 2, but sometimes they say 1. There's not a frame, just take 1 frame out. So you lose 2 frames out of a 10 frame hive. Use those.
Gary,
Yeah.
do you have the ladders in yours?
I'm sorry.
Do you have the ladders?
Actually, they do. They're all
They stuck
they're stuck in. But in the holes, there's a little plastic glass that goes in so the bees can climb in and climb out so they don't climb in there to the ground. Some of these won't have the cap on here, and they'll just have a serrated side that the bees climb in and out. I think you drown it by the thousands. I think this is better. It's got the little lattice in that can climb up. It's a little sock that fits in there, fits down the hole. Some of them will have a float. I don't use those either. I've seen the floats get stuck, the bees around. They'll have a float that will float up and down with the syrup, so the bees have a place to land and not drown. This is the only kind I've found of a Boardman feeder or a division board feeder where you won't drown bees. And you'll still get a few in the bottom, but that's about the best I've found. Bad part about them, they hold a lot of syrup, but they're difficult to monitor. So you don't know if they're taking a lot of syrup. You got to crack the hive open, take the inner cover off, look. So you're opening the hive to see if needed. But when you do, you can put a gallon of syrup on at a time. So that's the only bad part about them. Hive tops, couple different varieties. Jeanette's brought a couple in. Just a bucket feeder. It's got little tiny holes drilled in it. You invert on the inner cover, put a honey super on top, and you can feed, I think that's a gallon bucket. Other hive tops, fits over the inner cover hole. You fill it, probably holds a half a gallon of syrup, probably. Little place for the bees to climb out, and they won't drown. Jeanette swears by this, that she hasn't had any drown.
One time I didn't put the little plastic thing on quite straight, and I had some drown in. But if the plastic thing is on and it has little notches to feel where it is, if it's on properly, I've never had one drown.
Yeah.
There, it's great.
I don't have an example of the other high top feeders that are, I don't know the name of them, but it's a high top feeder. It's like a big tray. It looks like a paint tray that fits on top and they can come up. Now the ones made out of plastic aren't so bad. The old ones leak like a sieve. But the new ones that are made out of plastic are better. They're nice, they're easy to monitor. All you gotta do is pop the lid. You don't have to take the inner cover off. So you can add syrup real quickly, easily take the lid off, see if they're taking syrup. Sometimes they leak, sometimes, now Jeanette says they don't leak, and they don't drown in hers, but I've seen the others where they drown quite a bit. Other hive tops.
About the in-hive feeders, if you put them over on the side of your hive, you can just pop up your inner cover and slide it back so that you're not exposing all the bees in there.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier to feed that way.
Yeah. Other high tops, just go to Lowe's and get you about a 1 gallon paint can. Just take a little finish nail, poke a couple holes, put that right over the inner cover and the hole, and then put a super around it, put the lid on. Real simple, it's cheap. I'm cheap, so you can buy these for like $1. Other inner covers, we've all got gobs of mason jars with the little holes in them. So just get your piece of plywood and finish it. And I can put 3 and put it on the inner cover. I get really ambitious, I can do a whole bunch, but I don't know how many that'll fit right on, so I can put a whole bunch. That's kind of a waste of time by the time you do all that, but I was just messing around. My favorite way to feed is open feed. A lot of people don't like to open feed, but I think if you have room to do it, for me it's the easiest way to feed. I feed in 5-gallon buckets. Almost every, my splits and nukes, I'll use division board feeders, but almost everything else I feed 5-gallon buckets. So I just get old paint buckets, rinse them out real good. I take a real small drill and drill a hole down through the support rim and put my sugar syrup in there. I turn it upside down and it creates a vacuum. Pretty quick, usually a little bit runs out. I can feed about 4 gallons at a time. So, and it's real simple. I don't have to get in the hive.
That doesn't promote rotting.
You need to be about 50 to 75 yards away from your apiary. You can't put it in your apiary, or it just creates havoc. Because it creates havoc wherever you put it. I mean, it is a giant mess of flying bees. And when you set this out, if you put it in your apiary, it's just going to go crazy. But if you set it 100 yards away, I've never had any trouble with it. But
Do you have trouble with feeding too many yellow jackets in?
I feed my neighbor's bees, I feed the yellow jackets, but I can feed 40 gallons of syrup in a half hour. I can just make this up, go up, set them upside down, I'm done. I find this the easiest way to feed. If you figure in the fall you might need to feed 3, 4, 5 gallons per hive, well, you got 10 hives, that's a lot of getting in, selling syrup. So I use this. But if you don't have room, if you just keeping your bees in your backyard and you don't have 50 yards, it's probably not the way to do it. But if you have a small hobby farm, then you can separate them out. I wouldn't put it by the back patio either. Because it really is crazy. It's kind of fun to see when they find it. So that's how I feed. A lot of people will bucket your neighbor's yard. A lot of commercial guys will do the same thing, but they use 55-gallon drums, corn syrup. So they get corn syrup, they pop the lid, they put 6 inches of straw on it, and they feed 55 gallons at a time. So I don't have a way to handle 55 gallons, but that's what I like to use because it's quick and easy.
Is the corn syrup any different than sugar? Or better or worse?
I don't know.
I've never fed corn syrup, so I don't know. I just was wondering.
There's 2 kinds of corn syrup, you know, watch which one you get.
Yeah, there's one kind that's poisonous to bees, I guess, and there's another. So
For most of us as hobbyists, it's not economically viable.
I bought.
Makes sense when you're
I
starting.
thought I was smart. I bought a 55-gallon. You know how much a 55-gallon drum of corn syrup is? I couldn't get it out of my truck. So I drove around with a 55-gallon barrel of corn syrup in the back of my truck trying to scoop buckets of corn syrup out. I had sticky everywhere. So I my one time buying a drum of corn syrup. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but I didn't get it.
How do you find out which ones are bad?
You can research. Is it like high fructose, like 21 or something? There's one kind that's not appropriate, and there's another kind of corn syrup that's appropriate. And I honestly don't know. I bought mine from, I think, the Fat Bee Man in Georgia, and he set it up on a trailer with some guys. But normally I just use sugar, regular granulated sugar. That's another thing. You got to use the right sugar. You can't use anything with cornstarch. You can't use powdered sugar. Powdered sugar, you got cornstarch. You can't use brown sugar. Be careful of if something's too good of a deal, you're going to get, the waste product from a candy maker or something. Be careful, you don't know what's in the sugar. It's really got to be sugar. So if there's other additives to it, you got to be careful with getting anything else rather than granulated regular sugar.
I read that you should not use raw sugar. Now, I don't know who's going to pay the price for raw sugar in these,
That's right.
but,
It's got molasses in it.
yeah,
So
but don't use raw sugar.
don't use molasses. So just regular, cane or beet sugar. I don't think the bees know a cane from a bee. So,
Yeah, Myers got 10-pound bags of beet sugar for like $3.20. Pretty cheap.
that's pretty good.
It is.
I go to Aldi's. I get 4 pounds for like $1.39 or something. That's pretty good. Every once in a while, you'll see a Kroger's for $1, and I buy every bag I can get when I see it for $1.
So it's you.
Um,
I did the math, your barrel was about 650 pounds.
yes, it was a lot. There's no way to pick it up. I mean, they set it in the back of my truck with one of those forklifts, that picks up a barrel. And it seemed like a great idea, but I got to the farm, I'm like, how in the world am I going to get this out? Well, I did. I drove around about 3 weeks with the barrel. Bees followed me around.
Mobile feeding.
I think that's all I have for that. I know you're making candy boards. If anybody tries to keep nukes over the winter, you can make a candy board for a nuke. So if you haven't done that, so we have candy boards. I'll make candy boards that fit like a frame too. I'll slide down in, put them on a deep frame and slide them in.
For top bar feeder.
Top bars, yeah.
You just
So
make
these-
a regular frame and put
Put wire on it, slide it down in.
the liquid sugar.
And I use nuke candy boards. That's all I've got. Any questions on feeding? Spring or fall feeding? Feed or feeding or feeders? Yes,
Do you
sir.
recommend pollen patties or anything to add to your sugars with?
I think in real certain circumstances, pollen patties might be good, but I just don't think you necessarily need them. I mean, if you go out in late February, 1st March, and there's pollen to be brought in, they're bringing in plenty of pollen to stimulate the queen. If you're calling bees to California and you're doing almonds, yeah, because you got to get your bees strong, quick. But around here, for most of us, you really don't need pollen patties. If anything, you're probably just feeding the small hives. That's my opinion. I just don't think pollen patties for what we're doing. Most of us, if you're commercial and you're sending them out to California and you've got to hit a certain strength of bees to pass muster to put them in the almond field, the almond orchards, maybe. Most of us we don't need this. That's my opinion. Any other questions? All right.
Can you overfeed, Gary?
Can you overfeed?
Can you make the bees sort of let that, they can't fly?
I think you can overfeed from the standpoint you can honey, like you can get honey bound and you can put too much feed in. I don't know that I've ever had situations where I thought it was terrible. Usually, like right now, I've got buckets and buckets of syrup out. Damn, touch. So the bees know when to take it. I mean, down south in Switzerland County, they're starving. Up here, I've got buckets of open feed out that they haven't touched for 3 weeks. So there's too much. There's goldenrod. That's what they're feeding on. And they haven't touched my feeders. So I don't know. I've seen where some of the guys in Canada, they actually take their trucks out with hoses and they stick them in the hive, open it up, and they pour sugar syrup right in the hive, right on and they close it up and close the hive up. So I don't know how it doesn't just, but they basically are filling the cone with the syrup. So, I don't know. All right, Jim, you're up.
All right, where's Jim? So, I don't think so. All right. Evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So a lot of the times when I come and talk, I'm reviewing an article that's been published in one of the journals. Tonight's a little different. This is an article that's actually going to be published in a couple of months, and I just happened to have it up on my computer, so I made a presentation out of it because I'm lazy. So if you watch Bee Culture, sometime probably before the end of the year, you'll see this article. But in the meantime, you get a pre-publication preview. We're going to talk tonight about mentoring. Who here either doesn't have bees or is in your first year of beekeeping? Not that many. How many have been keeping bees for more than 3 years? Okay. We got a lot of people that are right in the gap in between, too. Well, really, this is aimed at people who are new beekeepers, but I think a lot of it applies to more experienced beekeepers as well, because mentoring is a big part of beekeeping, and we're going to talk a little bit about why that is. Wow, this projector is just dying. So what's the problem? The problem is that getting started in beekeeping, as all of you know, can be kind of intimidating. There's a ton of information to learn, and if you surf the web, God help you if you watch YouTube, start looking at YouTube videos about beekeeping. If you look at the books and the publications that are out there, all the classes that you can attend locally and statewide, nationally, you can really just get completely buried in the amount of knowledge that's out there. And it's hard sometimes to determine what's important and what's not. And to make it even worse, you can find nationally known experts who will directly contradict each other. You know, feed your bees, don't feed your bees. Treat your bees, don't treat your bees. You know, harvest in the spring, harvest in the fall. You know, you can find opinions out there on all these different things. And as a new beekeeper, it can be very hard to sort out what's the good information and what's not. And that can be frustrating, and some people just throw up their hands and say, what am I supposed to do? And if you talk to other beekeepers, they'll tell you probably, oh, well, what you need is a mentor. So what is a mentor? A mentor, according to the OED, is an experienced and trusted advisor. Now, a lot of us have mentors at different points in our lives. Sometimes it's something as simple as someone who walks you around on your first day at a new job and shows you where the bathroom is and where to put your lunch. Other mentor relationships are lifelong and holistic. I have an older friend of mine who's been my best friend for 20 years, and he and I bounce all sorts of different things off of him, and he gives me very good advice. A beekeeping mentor, really the point there is to help a new beekeeper get through that first year or two, hopefully without losing their bees, but at least to give them a better chance of getting through that first couple of years. There we go. So, why do you need one? Well, if you've got YouTube and all these classes and books, why should you bother with the whole face-to-face mentoring relationship? We are in the electronic age. I know that I don't talk to people nearly as much as I used to anymore. If I even want a reservation at a restaurant, I can do it online. I don't even have to call the restaurant anymore. So why bother with a mentor? Really, the main reason is that beekeeping is more than just a collection of academic knowledge. Beekeeping is also, in the truest sense of the word, a craft, and it has to be taught. There are skills that involve how you handle the equipment, how you handle the bees, what you do and when. And those are things that are very difficult to learn from an online video. It's very difficult to pick up from a classroom. You really learn them best when you're standing shoulder to shoulder with somebody in the bee yard, actually handling the equipment and handling the bees. The other thing is that a lot of the other sources of information that we have are national or international, whereas your mentor is local. Your mentor knows that the goldenrod flow started here about 2 weeks ago. He knows when the dearth is going to happen. He knows how much weight your hive should have going into winter for this part of the country. And so having that kind of local knowledge, in addition to sort of the general knowledge that you get reading other sources of information, can be a great help to you. Another thing is, and this is something I think a lot of people underestimate, but beekeepers are generally social animals. You take somebody back there like Barry, who's been around a while, you know, he knows every beekeeper in the state. And if you hang around with Barry, you're going to meet some of these people. And you're going to find out that, first of all, Barry doesn't know everything, but he knows people who probably do.
I can give you none of that advice to anybody.
That's right. But he's very likely to introduce you to somebody like David Holka, who does know everything, and you can learn from them as well. So getting involved with a mentor is really one way of sort of getting interjected into the social aspect of beekeeping and to start making those connections. When you need a queen, who are you going to call? When you're having trouble with robbing and Barry's not around, who can you call for advice? So having a mentor relationship is helpful with that as well. So how do we go about building a relationship like this? Well, first of all, you have to find one. And where are you going to find that mentor? A lot of people who started beekeeping when they were very young learned beekeeping from a family member, a parent, a grandparent, maybe an uncle who kept bees. Some people had a next door neighbor or someone their family knew who kept bees and they learned from them. Other people who took it up maybe later in life, maybe they bought honey from a beekeeper like Dave here. Dave sells his honey, and somebody who wants to get into beekeeping knows that Dave's a beekeeper, and they'll say, Dave, can you help me get started in beekeeping? And Dave would say, of course I will. And so Dave becomes their mentor. But failing all of those, there are organizations like this club here, where a prospective or a new beekeeper can come, and they can ask those kind of questions, and they can get to know some other beekeepers, and they can identify somebody who might be a good mentor for them. So if you're going to look for a mentor, what characteristics, what should you look for in that person? First of all, you want somebody who's good at beekeeping, okay? Which is different maybe than somebody who talks a lot about beekeeping, but somebody who's actually been successful keeping their bees for a number of years. And maybe more than just keeping their bees alive, but somebody who has expanded a bit in the craft and learned to do some things like queen rearing, how to make splits successfully, how to overwinter large and small colonies. These different skills, those are the types of people you want to learn from. You also want to find somebody that's reasonably close to you. If your mentor is an hour or more away from you, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get together. Doesn't mean it won't work, just like long-distance relationships. You can make them work, but it takes a lot more effort. And you're likely to spend more time with somebody who's close to you. And then, of course, you want to have somebody who keeps the same type of hives as you. Most of us here keep Langstroth hives, but there are a few top bar beekeepers out there, and vanishingly few Warray beekeepers out there as well. Or maybe you've got a flow hive, and you've got questions about that. You want to find somebody who's doing the kind of beekeeping you're doing. And even beyond just hive equipment. If you keep your bees primarily because you like bees and just want to have them in your garden, and you're not really interested in honey production, okay, you might not get the kind of advice you need from somebody who is a hardcore, commercial-minded beekeeper. So find somebody who does things the way you do or would like to do and thinks the way you would like to. So, once you've identified that person, you actually have to ask them. And this intimidates some people. They don't like walking up and asking for what they perceive to be a favor. But the truth is, pretty much every experienced beekeeper is going to be flattered if you come up and ask them if they would mentor you or if they would help you through that first year. However, it's also very possible that they're going to say no. Not because they're upset that you've asked, but because their life, their bees, their children, their job is taking up all of their time. And all of us have a finite block of time we can spend on beekeeping. And a person just may not be able to take on another new beekeeper or may not have the time to really do a good job of it. So don't be discouraged if the person you ask says, thanks, but I really can't. Have a second or a third option out there and just keep going down your list until you get somebody who says, yes, you will find someone. Once you do identify that person, then talk to them and say, okay, if we're going to do this, what's this look like? Are we just going to sit around and have coffee? Are we going to chat every once in a while? Are we going to inspect bees together? But get an understanding between the two of you what that relationship is going to look like so that you have the same expectations. So, I want to talk a little bit about some things that, as a new beekeeper, you can do that will help you get the most out of a relationship with a mentor. It can work on a whole bunch of different levels, but in my own experience and in talking with some other folks, I found that these types of things are things that oftentimes will help make that relationship a lot better. Number one, work with your mentor's schedule. Remember, your mentor is taking time away from other things to come and help you. Okay? So, as much as possible, adjust your schedule to theirs. Ask them when they are available, and then make your schedule fit their time that they have available. Remember that accommodating someone else's schedule is one of the best ways to show that you really value their time. Also, find out how your mentor likes to communicate. Oddly enough, we don't all communicate the same way. I personally hate talking on the phone. Always have. I'm not a phone chatter. My daughter will sit on the phone, honest to God, for 2 hours at a stretch. Okay? My phone calls tend to be an exchange of factual information and hanging up. That's it. Okay? I'm not a chatter, much to my wife's dismay. 30 years and she still doesn't understand that. But people's lives make different kinds of demands on them. And for some people, taking phone calls is very difficult. Text messaging works well for them. Other people don't like texting. They want an email. Or they maybe just want to meet face-to-face. Okay? Find out what it is that's going to work best for you and your mentor, and then make a point of, as much as possible, communicating with your mentor in that way. This is a big one. Make the effort to educate yourself. The whole idea behind mentoring is that you can't learn everything from classes and videos and books. However, there is a lot you can learn from books and classes and videos, okay? And a mentor is not responsible for teaching you everything about beekeeping, okay? You have to take the responsibility on yourself to learn the fundamentals. Read a book. There are thousands of good beekeeping books out there. Okay? Anybody here would be happy to recommend a good title in Introductory Beekeeping. If you're in a position of possibly being a mentor, have a copy of one of the good basic texts available to give someone during that first meeting and say, here, read this, and we'll go from there. But relying on your mentor to teach you absolutely everything about bees is one of the easiest ways to burn out that whole mentor-mentee relationship. Don't be afraid to try something and possibly fail. There is no reason that a first-year beekeeper cannot try and raise their own queens. Absolutely no reason at all. It doesn't work any differently in years 2, 3, or 4, and it takes about 5 minutes to do. I held off for years because I was afraid that it just wouldn't work. And the first time I tried it, it didn't work. The second time it did. It's easy for some new beekeepers to become paralyzed with fear because they're afraid if they do the wrong thing, they're going to kill the bees. Okay? And the reality is that sometimes we do the wrong things and sometimes we do kill bees. Has anyone here who's been beekeeping for more than 3 years never lost a hive? Okay.
Well, if you don't count the skunk.
I count the skunk. I mean, the truth is that there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And on your way to becoming an excellent beekeeper, the sad truth is you're probably going to kill a lot of bees. Okay? The lessons I have learned and remember the best are where I've made the worst mistakes. Those things stick with you. We try and minimize it as much as possible, but it happens. But it is infinitely easier to work with someone who is trying and struggling than it is someone who wants to do nothing and is afraid to try anything. Keep an open mind when working with a mentor. Remember that each experienced beekeeper is going to have their own twist on how to do things. And it's great. Just ask them why you do that. You know, you're working with some old guy and he says, you know, every time before I go out and work my bees, I put a stewed tomato in my shoe, and I haven't lost a hive in 10 years. Now, that's odd. Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. But the guy hasn't lost a hive in 10 years, so it's worth at least listening to him and maybe buying a can of tomatoes. Okay? Remember, they've been doing this for years, and they've been successful, so even if their way of doing it is different than what a book says or what the video says, listen to what they have to say and at least consider it. If they're really out to lunch on something, you can always do things differently yourself, but at least give them the benefit of the doubt. That's my daughter. Be realistic in your expectations. Learning even the fundamentals of good beekeeping takes years. Okay? It takes years. It doesn't come overnight. And don't be disappointed too much if you have failures. You're going to have hives that die. It just happens. That's one of the reasons why we encourage beekeepers to start out with 2 hives, not 1. Okay? Because you just doubled your chances of taking bees through the winter. But don't get too disappointed by failures. Your mentor is going to help increase your chances of success, but they're not going to guarantee it. So even if we all do everything right, chances are you might still lose bees here and there. I think the point of all this is, as I look back on my own beekeeping, I learned a lot from the people who came alongside me when I first started out. And now that I've kept bees for a while, I've got a chance to give back a little bit. If you're new to beekeeping, take advantage of the experienced people around you. The vast majority are more than happy to talk with you about bees until any normal, sane person would run screaming away. And if you are an experienced beekeeper, take the opportunity to give a little something back and to help somebody out. And oddly enough, if you hang around with people who are really immersed in beekeeping and getting going on it with that passion, you might actually learn something as well. Any questions?